Welcome in to the Holla at Hometeam podcast. A great guy on a great day at a great time. We are honored to be joined by a man who is right in the thick of things that impact a lot of people around the world and certainly around this country, and in particular now with HBCUs. We talked to a man who is an attorney. He is a husband. He is a father. He is a former track star and a dog lover. He's also a man with a bevy of knowledge and a lot of passion. He's Luke Fedlam, who joins us here on the Holla at Hometeam podcast. Thank you so much for your time and your willingness to come in today.
Hometeam, absolutely. Listen, you can keep doing introductions for me anytime you want. I love it.
Now, you're an attorney. One of my things I'm working on is my hype man business. This radio thing doesn't work out. Maybe I can do hype man
great.
Stuff.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for your time today. Important time in the world of sports, in particular college athletics, and you are at the forefront of a major change that's going on right now with these NIL deals that are available for those who are able to acquire them. First, tell us a little bit about yourself and how and why you are at the forefront of what's going on with NIL deals.
Absolutely. Name, image, and likeness is really the most significant change to college sports that we've seen in 70 years, since they first started offering student-athlete scholarships. I've worked with professional athletes on the financial side and then as a lawyer for about 17 years now. So I've seen athletes who've been taken advantage of when they do different types of media or marketing type of deals, when they do brand ambassador deals. And so when we first saw that name, image, and likeness was going to become a reality back in 2019, when California kind of started this whole kind of cascading effect, we knew that there had to be a focus on education, right? So I care deeply about making sure that athletes are not just protected when they do these deals on the legal side. I really care about the education. So that's really what put us in that forefront, because it's like we ought to make sure that athletes, their families, coaches, athletic administrators, athletic directors, that they understand what name, image, and likeness is all about. Because if you think about it, heads of compliance, athletic directors, coaches, they don't typically deal with this kind of stuff. They don't deal with marketing deals. So this education isn't just for the student athlete, it's for every stakeholder that's involved in this space.
When you talk about those things and getting educated, where does it start? I'm a defense guy. You have to protect yourself. So you would like to think that a lot of families and a lot of student athletes would take it upon themselves to, kind of get out there. But there are a lot of things they don't know, and there are not a lot of people necessarily telling them where to go. Where does the educational component start in your opinion?
I think it starts in a couple different places. Number one, as young as possible. Because to be honest with you, we're having conversations with the parents of middle school and high school student athletes as well. Right? Especially those athletes that are at that elite level that you know are going to make it on and transition to play in college and potentially have a chance to play in the pros. So having that conversation early on when parents are saying, well, my son or daughter is a minor, so if they want to do a deal, I'm going to be signing it. I need to make sure that I understand. But then also at the college level, it really starts oftentimes when a player has a deal and they want to sign it, but they know they don't understand what it is that they're signing. I mean, let's be honest. We were 18, 19, 20 years old before. If somebody said, I'm going to put money in your pocket, right? All you got to do is sign here. Where do I sign?
Two hands. I'll sign with both hands.
Exactly. And so, but what they're starting to realize, I think that we've really seen over the last 10 to 15 years, this movement towards player empowerment, and athletes are seeing this business that's happening around them and wanting to understand that business a little bit better, so they reach out for that protection.
What do you recommend when you talk about getting the right people in front of you and the right information in front of you? Sometimes, Uncle Tommy, Cousin Johnny, might be the spokesperson sometimes for a young person who doesn't know where to go. But when you start talking about thousands of dollars of deals and maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars, where are the student athletes to turn, and how are they able to do that when sometimes, even though you are the person putting yourself out there, you are the person getting the NIL deal, but there's a lot of pressure and people who might do a lot of the speaking for you?
That's the interesting thing. A lot of times people ask me, like, well, who's your biggest competition? And to be honest, what I say is my biggest competition is families and athletes not knowing the value of having an independent and objective lawyer review the deals that they're about to sign. Everybody has a cousin so-and-so and an uncle so-and-so that want to be involved in all this, but they're smartest when they realize if you can present or go out and push and promote your family members' opportunity to earn name, image, and likeness deals, then you really want to make sure that you focus on bringing in experts to help with that, right? And those experts could include people like myself as a lawyer reviewing the deals, but also on the financial side, right? I mean, taxes are something that most 18, 19, and 20-year-olds don't think about, but it's a very real aspect of name, image, and likeness. So really focusing, I always tell people, focus on your core competency. If you're a family member, focus on promoting your family member, right? Focus on promoting that student athlete. But then bring in experts who know what they're doing to make sure that that athlete stays protected once they decide that they want to sign on to a deal.
Luke, what do you think the difference is in this opportunity for people who attend HBCUs as opposed to counterparts who don't?
Home team, you're asking the right questions. Listen, this is exactly, you hit the nail on the head. I think that HBCUs really are presented with a unique equalizing opportunity in the sports space.
I like that.
Right? That we have this opportunity now where HBCUs can go out and recruit student athletes, 4 or 5-star recruits that already have a social media following, that already have brands who are kind of interested in following them. Because when we think about it before, student athletes would decide, I want to go to the school that is going to give me the best opportunity to make money when I leave. Right? Because student athletes couldn't earn money in college. So it was like, well, I want to go to a blue blood, predominantly white institution typically that is, going to be at the forefront of football or basketball or whatever my sport is. But now, if I know I can get good coaching, if I know I can get that, athletic development, because I can earn money and these brands can follow me, it doesn't matter where I go. So now we've started to see it, right, with Jackson State and with other schools that have started to recruit these elite athletes. I think we're going to see more of that. If I was an athletic director or a coach at an HBCU, I would be calling every single alum of my institution that is a CEO, that is a chief marketing officer, that is an entrepreneur to say, hey, listen, this is the opportunity for us to start to compete. Because let's play this out for a second. If you recruit that top talent, and you can use name, image, and likeness to help you recruit them, and you end up getting some of those games where now you start upsetting some of those, predominantly, blue-blooded institutions, it's a whole different ballgame.
To your point, you're a Demon Deacon.
Absolutely.
And one of the greatest players of all time, Chris Paul, went to Wake Forest. He's the only person in his family that did not go to an HBCU. So his support and how he's felt his entire life has been in a certain position. But when it came time to choose what was best for him,
that's right,
it was to go to Wake Forest. Nothing wrong with Wake Forest. Fantastic.
That's right. Nothing wrong with Wake Forest.
Nothing wrong with being a Demon Deacon. But y'all could have come to Morehouse or gone to someone.
That's right.
Yeah, we always say you have to go to school somewhere. So it's all right. But great school at Wake Forest. But somebody like Chris Paul, a talent like that, if back when he was in college, he could have had a $500,000 deal, a $40,000 deal, a $200,000 deal, which might have made his accommodations and his experience maybe, the equalizer, and also give him what his worth would have been. A player like that now and moving forward might have another opportunity or avenue for him to drive down and make that selection to go to an HBCU.
A lot more opportunities. And let's think about this, right? Because schools have assets that they use to recruit their student athletes, right? And so historically it's been our facilities, the number of players that we put in the pros every year. Name, image, and likeness is now going to be one of those assets that they can use. And if you could imagine yourself now, which I think is what Deion Sanders is really doing a good job of developing, is this idea that you can come here and you can win. You can get coached by some of the best. You can go on to play at the next level. And guess what? Now, because of name, image, and likeness, you can make money while you're here. Establish your name, right, in the pantheon of that school's history. Like, that is where I think there's absolutely opportunity for student athletes.
Do you think there's any added pressure for a student athlete that goes to an HBCU, being that monies typically on the same scale have not been funneled to institutions or, now with players, but the incredible opportunity also sometimes creates an incredible amount of pressure. You can't mess it up. Right. We don't want you to mess it up because it could be a situation where next time the monies might not flow. Do you think there's added pressure for student athletes that get NIL deals at HBCUs?
There's absolutely added pressure on student athletes who decide that they want to go to HBCUs. And that pressure comes Because if a student athlete, let's say is a 4-star recruit, a 5-star recruit, if they decide to go in football, if they decide to go to an Alabama, a Georgia, an Ohio State, what have you, no one's going to fault them for making that decision, right? Especially if things don't necessarily pan out, they're not going to be faulted. But the pressure, if you are that highly recruited athlete and you decide to go to an HBCU, there is absolutely additional pressure. That are you making the right decision? What happens if you don't perform at the level you are expected to perform at? Then what happens? What happens kind of with the next steps for you? But that's where I feel like name, image, and likeness can create this entire ecosystem where we have brands and companies investing and engaging with HBCUs in ways that we haven't seen before, because they can engage and invest in the athletes at HBCUs. And if we start to see that evolve, I think we're going to see these platforms, these schools elevated on the sports, on the sports scale, where typically, we see it where, you might have an HBCU that gets paid $100,000 to come play this Power 5 school, right, in football. And I think what we could see, football's a little bit tougher, but basketball, let's think about this. Basketball, you could just say, you know what, I need to find 5 alumni, business owners or what have you, that can say, we're gonna invest $500,000 in each of your 5 starters. Basketball could be an easy way to switch this opportunity now where you could get some significant wins that elevates the profile of the school. We know that the more media attention a school gets, the increase we see in recruiting. We always see that during March Madness, right? When that Cinderella story, all of a sudden website visits and all that increase. So name, image, and likeness could create this shift in this ecosystem that ultimately could lead to wild success. Pressure, yes, but pressure makes diamonds. You see what happens.
Also, you talked about the equalizer with the NIL deals and opportunities. The other equalizer sometimes could be social media. Yes. Kids are a lot more savvy. The availability of them to start earlier when they're in high school, when people start paying attention to them. I remember watching Zion Williamson, videos. Didn't even hear about the kid until I saw him on social media. Right. The blending of that, when you talk about making the decision on whether to go to a non-HBCU or an HBCU, is something that could be helpful. What is your advice? Because you do have to be careful about what you post so that you don't make yourself unattractive to people who might want to invest in you and in their brands.
Absolutely. So I get the opportunity to speak to college student athletes all across the country. And it's fascinating, some of this work that we do. Anomaly Sports Group is a company that is just focused on education. I started it a bunch of years ago because we saw these trends of athletes getting taken advantage of. How do we start engaging in conversation to educate student athletes? One of the things that I hear consistently, I'll ask a question to say, can you create a contract with someone through your DMs, right, when you're just messaging back and forth? And 99% of people will say, no, absolutely not, because it's not a written contract where you sign your name to. But when you look at the elements of a contract, you absolutely can. We talk about that, and what is fascinating to your point about social media is that so often student athletes will say, yeah, but you could delete your messages. And boom, now we can have the conversation that nothing that you delete on social media is gone. Yeah. It's always there. And so whether you're thinking about your DMs or whether you're thinking about what you're posting, it matters. And one thing, we've been talking quite a bit, and I've been sharing a lot about elite student athletes, right, that are getting name, image, and likeness deals because of their performance. There are a lot of student athletes who are getting name, image, and likeness deals just because of their social media following. They may be an average student athlete, but they've found a way to get 1 million followers across TikTok and their social media platforms and what have you. And those student athletes, HBCUs, again, because of the family environment, the nurturing environment, the opportunity to have access to, great alumni doing great things and leaders in industry, HBCUs could present a great opportunity for those student athletes who have that social media following, who want to figure out, how do I commercialize this? How do I monetize this following that I have? HBCUs can help with that.
And what about the non-profile sports? I say non-profile, we start with football and basketball in this country. It's just what we do. But there are plenty of tennis players, plenty of golf players, plenty of young ladies who can have an opportunity as well. And there are a whole lot of women in charge of some Fortune 500 monies and marketing dollars. The opportunity for those who don't play men's basketball or football to have those same opportunities at HBCUs.
Absolutely. When you think about it, especially, we're coming into, this anniversary of Title IX and where we're at there are a lot of opportunities for women in sports from a name, image, and likeness perspective. To your point, there are a lot of decision makers who are women in that space, but it's not just a matter of, hey, we want to give these women student athletes opportunity. It's that women student athletes, and you can look at the research on this, are more engaged with their social media following. If you look at, I think 2019 might be the last year that we've seen this study, but about the team in college sports with the most engagement was UCLA's women's gymnastics team in 2019. And so when you think about that, there are significant opportunities for women to do social media deals and other name, image, and likeness opportunities. And when we look just at basketball in particular, and the growth of women's basketball, there are opportunities across the board for women athletes in name, image, and likeness.
What are some of the things that concern you? Because, the bottom line of business is to make money.
Yes.
So what are some of your concerns with NIL opportunities and as they pertain to students who attend HBCUs?
It is so cliche to say, well, this is what keeps me up at night, but let me tell you some things that literally will keep me up at night.
All right.
Taxes, number one, right? Making sure that student athletes understand, yes, you are getting a deal, but even though they said they're going to pay you $20,000, you're going to receive a check for $20,000, but guess what? Uncle Sam wants his portion of that too. And helping them understand, again, we're talking about 17, sometimes 18, 19, 20-year-olds in this college athletic space that now have to think about that. It also concerns me athletes who are taken advantage of. If we think about our HBCUs, and if we talk about it more broadly, and I'm not here to make generalizations, I think that a lot of people would agree that oftentimes African-American athletes set trends. They set what's cool, they set what people want to follow. And so when we think about that, there's a desire for athletes to I want to do a merchandise deal. I want to have my own clothing line. I've talked to so many college student athletes who've tried to have their own clothing line. I've talked to so many pro athletes who try to have a clothing line. It is hard. People will try to take advantage of athletes who don't understand the business of sports that's happening around them. And that's what keeps me up at night. How do we make sure that we're conveying this real world practical education? I get it. You go to college as a student athlete, there's the student part of that phrase, student athlete. We know the impact of so many student athletes that the focus has been on the athlete part. We have to make sure that the student part, it focuses on real world practical education of name, image, and likeness and this business as opposed to just the academic side, helping them understand what should I look for in a contract. I've talked to student athletes who've said, yeah, I signed a contract, but I didn't read it because I didn't understand all the legalese. That's what lawyers are here for. That's how we can help you. And so we talk about what are some of those at least 3 or 4 things that you should look for in a contract to understand before you actually sign it. How do you think about budgeting? Because if we were to talk about that same $20,000 deal, let's say you had a marketing agent, right? So on a $20,000 deal, let's say your marketing agent who found that deal for you charges 20%. Great, so that 20% is off the gross amount. So you've got $4,000 that comes off that $20,000. So that's $16,000. But by the way, you should set aside money for taxes. You should probably err on the more aggressive side to say, I'm going to set aside 50%, right, on taxes, just to be sure. Who knows what state you live in, if you're going to be subject to state tax in California and other states that have significant state tax amount. So if you set aside 50%, that's $10,000. So somebody just told you, I'm giving you $20,000 for this deal. In your mind, if your mindset is, great, I got $20,000 to go hang out with my friends and we're going to go do this and go do that, you really only have $6,000 after you've paid your agent and set some money aside for taxes. So that mindset shift, that education has to exist so that athletes understand the true nature of this business of NIL.
We've talked about some of the things that are happening. What are some of the things you hope happen down the road?
One of the things that I hope we continue to see is this place where we're at now where everyone is trying to just figure it out and the envelope is getting pushed. There's really only 2 entities that can focus on kind of restricting name, image, and likeness, right? I mean, because states aren't going to do it, because states want to make sure, hey, we want all of our schools to be able to recruit all the talent and not have the restrictions on that. So it's really the NCAA. The NCAA can't do it because the NCAA versus Alston case, the NCAA doesn't have that authority anymore. And so it's in Congress. And Congress is dealing with a lot of other issues that are much bigger than whether or not student athletes are going to get compensated. So what is that? Where does that leave us, right? It leaves us in a place right now where student athletes are going into these institutions that are battling from a recruiting perspective and from a retention perspective. How do we make sure, because of the transfer portal, that we are retaining the talent that we currently have here and they're not going somewhere else to make more money? The reason I think we're going to continue to see that is because Congress is not going to move on this anytime soon. And so what do we have? We have schools now that are going to continue to press the envelope. Ultimately, and prayerfully for the benefit of student athletes, for the benefit of student athlete empowerment. But we're going to see how that plays out. So I think we're going to continue to see that. I hope that we continue to see that jockeying for new creative ideas of how student athletes can now start to benefit from this entire business of college sports, that where they have been the ones, making this machine run that's been churning out money for years and years and years, and now they can start to participate, not getting paid by the schools, but being able to earn compensation off of their own name, their own image, their own likeness.
What is the responsibility of a university or a college? Because it's a personal situation, really, aside from you being a student athlete to some extent. It's your business deal. It's a side thing. However, HBCUs, there is a culture of nurturing and making sure we're a little bit in your business to point you in the right track. What is the responsibility as far as the educational component or the overall culture at a college or university to make sure that the right things and the right energy with the money that's coming in is going in the right place?
So, home team, this is why I can see you've been doing what you do for so long, because you ask the right questions. This is I think the quintessential question that has to be answered in college sports right now. What is the role of the institution in all of this? People could say institutions should take a hands-off approach, that student athletes they're contracting with third parties, not the institution themselves. So kind of, take your hands off of this business. But let's think about this for a second. We've historically said that student athletes, that the school is responsible for educating and preparing students, right, for success when they leave. They help them by having career services. They help them with interviewing prep and putting their resume together and all that they do from that perspective. From my perspective, it's no different with name, image, and likeness. Schools should be responsible for providing real-world, practical education to student athletes so that they can be successful, not just in name, image, and likeness, but in life. NIL allows for, I always call it a conduit for student athletes to learn important life skills and business skills in a way that they almost want to learn it, right? They may not want to go to, chemistry class, right, or calculus. But if you come in to say, hey, we're going to talk about financial management because you have this opportunity to earn money, now they want, tell me more. What do I need to learn? What do I need to understand? So if we can use NIL as a way to prepare for decision making in life, to prepare for understanding, to read something before you sign your name to it, to understand how to budget and plan for your finances, to me, that's the responsibility of schools, to make sure that they're providing that real world education so that when their student athletes leave school, we know 98% of them are not going pro. So that 98% and the other 2% who do go pro move into a situation after school where they're prepared for life.
And what do you think this will do competitively? I mean, Texas will compete with Alabama, Georgia will compete with Auburn. When things start to move down the road, I'm certain that the brothers in Ohio that are Morehouse men and the folks that still are here in Atlanta will get together, and we just won't let the Bison just find a way just to take all of the NIL deals and put them to their program. What do you think that does for a competitive spirit about business owners, people who have a message, and people who want young people to go to their institution to get some of the same things they got out of it when they were there?
That's what makes this so fascinating. So many NIL deals are local deals, or there's a local tie somehow, right? So it's an alum of this institution that is a business owner now, or that's an entrepreneur that's a CEO of a company that says, I want to invest back to help my school, right? Let's be very clear. These name, image, and likeness deals absolutely help the institutions, right? Because they want to be able to recruit talent. So that's why we see so many of these collectives that are popping up at all these different schools. But in terms of the competitive nature of college sports and business, this intersection is going to be fascinating. And we're going to continue to see this competitive nature grow as people are still competing, again, for these elite athletes to be able to perform as student athletes in the schools that they want to.
And lastly, do you see some of these things at all being distractions? You already have enough on your plate if you weren't a student athlete. You have even more on your plate if you are a student athlete. Now that you're throwing in that some of these participants in NIL deals will have something else on their plate, do you see any of this as a distraction or potentially harmful for those who might just have a little bit extra on their plate that might be a little bit too much for them, maybe earlier in their career than, say, if they were a junior or senior?
Yeah, could it be a distraction? Absolutely it could. So much could be a distraction. Let's think about this for a second though. So many of these name, image, and likeness deals are based on social media, right? So many. Student athletes are going to be on social media regardless of whether they're getting paid or not.
Right.
Might as well spend some time and get paid while I'm doing it. So could it be a distraction? Yeah, absolutely. Could it be harmful to student athletes? It could be in a couple different ways. One, by an athlete being taken advantage of, right? We know that there are unscrupulous people, right? Bad actors, whatever we want to call them, who try to take advantage of athletes.
And that's a part of life, and that's something you need to be prepared for no matter where you are. That's a part of life.
Absolutely. So could that happen? For sure. Also, could it be a distraction from your performance on the field or on the court? Yes. And that's where student athletes have to be reminded that your performance in your sport can help you to find more name, image, and likeness deals. It can help you to be more marketable. So reminding them of that performance, but we talked about it earlier, that pressure that comes with it could be significant. And we cannot forget the mental health and wellness of our student athletes, right? So that they are able to manage this new kind of brave new world of business and sports. And I think we help them manage that by providing the education, providing that real world education that's going to help them understand what it is that they're actually stepping into.
Well, we certainly thank you for your time, a bevy of information and passion. Plug your law firm, plug some of the things that you're involved with, and plug the summit that you're going to be a part of in May of this year in Texas.
Yeah, absolutely. So the law firm is Porter Wright, porterwright.com. I lead the firm's sports law practice, a firm of about 240 or so attorneys with clients all over the country and around the world. Anomaly Sports, if you go to anomalysportsgroup.com, shows the education work that we're doing, the purely education work. But I'm really excited. In May, I'll be one of the keynote speakers at the Black Student Athlete Summit. It'll be held at Rice University in Houston this May. It's going to be fantastic. It really focuses on Black student athletes, but also on those Black administrators who are working with student athletes, right? Because they need the preparation. If we're honest about things, you have athletic administrators, athletic directors, coaches who have never had to deal with marketing agreements before, who now have to, and who are dealing with student athletes who have these opportunities. So we're going to talk about all that and how do we help make sure that our Black student athletes are equipped to understand and manage this business happening around them.
Well, a fantastic run of information and knowledge. Certainly passionate about what you do, so you're certainly going to get people to be attracted and stick to what you're trying to say, and you're trying to help people, which is also a great thing. So we really appreciate your time here at 680 The Fan and for the Home Team, Holla at Home Team podcast. We look forward to checking with you down the road, and I'm sure this will not be the last time we see you here around these parts.
Home Team, can't wait to come back, man.
Luke Fedlam, we thank you for his time. We'll see you next time on the Holla at Home Team podcast.